Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Rachel Goh and welcome to this session on the Solo taxonomy. Today we're going to learn how Solo can serve as standards and help support learning and assessment. Firstly, we'll begin with the fundamentals of the Solo taxonomy. Then we will look at how the 5 levels of understanding are helpful in crafting standards in a rubric. And finally, we are going to far transfer our learning by using Solo to support learning and teaching in the classroom. Let's take a look at this visual representation of the Solo taxonomy. Here, we see 5 progressive learning outcomes being depicted in terms of qualitative differences in students' responses. SOLO stands for the Structure of Observed Learning Outcomes. It is a taxonomy developed by Biggs and Collis in 1982 as a way of describing qualitatively different learning outcomes. Solo therefore offers a way of classifying learning outcomes in terms of its increasing level of complexity, and it enables us to assess students' responses in terms of its quality rather than on the quantity of information they have gotten right. In the next activity, I want to show examples of how students' responses can become increasingly more complex in their understanding as they move from pre-structural, unistructural, multi-structural, relational, and extended abstract levels. Have you heard of the word Tchoukball? What do you know about Tchoukball? I invite you to write down your responses on a piece of paper. You may want to pause the video here. Did some of you write, "I'm not sure," or "What's that?" In Solo terms, you are at the pre-structural level of understanding. I will show you next a video on Tchoukball and invite you to see what connections you can make. Do you have a better idea of Tchoukball? I invite you to write down your ideas before we continue. You may want to pause the video here. If you have written down one idea about Tchoukball, in Solo terms, this will be known as the unistructural level of understanding. As I share with you 3 more responses, would you compare them with what you have written to determine the level of understanding according to Solo, whether they are at the multi-structural level of understanding, relational, or at the extended abstract level of understanding? In this response, a number of ideas about Tchoukball are listed, about it being an indoor team sport, the number of players, what defenders cannot do, but these ideas are not related to one another in a relational way. In Solo terms, this is known as a multi-structural level of understanding. This response goes beyond a mere listing of ideas. By bringing in the concept of non-contact sport, a deeper understanding of Tchoukball in terms of its affordances and constraints on player is demonstrated. In Solo terms, this is known as a relational level of understanding. Understanding Tchoukball in the context of the spirit of the game deepens an individual's understanding of what it is beyond its relational constitution of game concepts and game rules. This person realizes that Tchoukball goes beyond the structure of its game and derives its significance from the principles of fair play and good sportsmanship. Such a level of understanding goes beyond a relational level and hence is known as the extended abstract level of understanding in solo terms. The premise of the taxonomy is that knowledge is not isolated. Rather, knowledge is inherently relational and it is best understood in the context of other relevant knowledge. So the Solo taxonomy argues that how and how well knowledge is structured leads to qualitatively different levels of understanding. So the emphasis of the taxonomy is thus on structure. So a superficial understanding of the structure of a complex idea belies poor student understanding. On the other hand, advanced student understanding of the same complex idea is evidenced by a sophisticated understanding of the structural constitution of that knowledge. In other words, students can see the same ideas in a new and different way. The progression of learning outcomes in the Solo taxonomy may also be understood with a building blocks approach. This is akin to helping students understand a complex concept by first understanding its component building block ideas and then eventually connecting all the different ideas to build a complete structured understanding of the complex concept. Enjoy the rest of the video. A good metaphor for explaining the differences between the learning outcomes in the Solo taxonomy is that of constructing a house. So the next segment, I'll be using the building of a house in the game of Minecraft to illustrate these differences. In the Minecraft game, one has to build safe places to ward off zombies. Someone new to the game may indicate they don't know what to do. So here they are simply acquiring bits of unconnected information which have no organization and makes no sense. In solo terms, this is the pre-structural level of understanding. Here, students will indicate they can build a safe place if you just tell them exactly what to do. So they can make simple and obvious connections, but the significance of which is not well grasped by them. In solo terms, they are said to be at the uni-structural level of understanding. Here, students may indicate they can build something, but they are not sure whether it will indeed keep them safe. So they can make a number of connections, but the meta connections between the different ideas are missed, and they don't really grasp the significance of the house as an entire whole. In solo terms, students with such responses are said to be at the multi-structural level of understanding. When students understand how to build a safe place and explain why it works, we can conclude that they are at the relational level of understanding. Here, they are able to appreciate the significance of the parts in relation to the whole. So the house is understood perfectly in terms of its relationship or structure between all its separate parts, between the pillars, the walls, the windows, and the other structures in the house. Finally, students are able to see what a house is in its integrated entirety. At the extended abstract level, the student is able to make connections not only with the given subject matter, which is a house, but he's able to go beyond it. He's able to generalize and transfer the principles and ideas underlying the specific instance. Here, students recognize that houses do not exist in isolation. They are part of a larger community and involves external infrastructure. So building extra houses so that friends can help each other makes houses safer than before. And the building of external infrastructure like torches and fences are particularly useful. The Solo taxonomy presents two implications for teaching, learning, and assessment. Firstly, by emphasizing relational understanding, it emphasizes that knowledge is not isolated and always needs to be linked to a larger body of relevance. The implications is for teachers to consider the logical connections students should be making in their topical knowledge. And such a goal involves curriculum redesign as well as changes to assessment practice. Secondly, the notion of extended abstract understanding argues that knowledge, even in a relational level, needs to be situated against a broader context. This is so that it has meaning beyond its constitutional components. The implication for teachers is to constantly present what the larger context of each topic would be to their students. This will push students thinking beyond the multi-structural and relational levels of understanding. What we have done so far is to consider the fundamentals of the Solo taxonomy. We looked at two different contexts to gather examples to better understand the 5 Solo levels to assess the qualitative differences in student responses. The first was in the context of declarative knowledge, in this case of understanding tchoukball, and in the second, it was in the context of functioning knowledge of how to build a house in the game of Minecraft. I invite you to try the matching quiz to assess your understanding of the fundamentals of the Solo taxonomy before we proceed to using our understanding of Solo in crafting standards in the design of a rubric.